to do their bit. Give the call to the Shadow Treasurer.
My question is to the Treasurer. The Treasurer has said, quote, "The reason why we support fuel excise relief, we want to see people under less pressure at the bowser. Nothing could make me happier than if there was some pressure taken off families who are doing it tough. Why is the Treasurer now refusing to cut the fuel excise to provide immediate relief to cash-strapped Australian families?"
Order. Give the call to the Treasurer.
Mr Speaker, the first point that I would make is if the Shadow Treasurer cared about the cost of living, he wouldn't be the first Shadow Treasurer in living memory to take to an election a policy to increase income taxes on every single Australian taxpayer. That's the first and most obvious point, Mr Speaker. Now, in relation to petrol, what we did on Tuesday night from this dispatch box is we found a way to give ongoing cost of living relief to every Australian taxpayer. Our combination of cost of living relief, whether it's cheaper medicines, cutting student debt, strengthening Medicare, tax cuts, energy bill relief, a combination of temporary and permanent ongoing cost of living relief in the budget that we handed down on Tuesday night, Mr Speaker. Now, he's asked me about comments from just before the last election. And that's a very welcome opportunity, Mr Speaker, to tell the House that when during the week of the last budget of those opposite, on the eve of the last election, petrol prices in Sydney were $2.15 a litre. They're now $1.95 a litre. Petrol prices in Canberra, $2.08 before the last election, $1.92 now. $2.15 in Melbourne, before the last election, $1.70 now. $2.17 in Brisbane, before the last election, $1.93 now. $2.18 in Adelaide, before the last election, $1.82 now. $2.03 before the last election in Perth, $1.75 now. $2.09 in Darwin, before the last election, $1.81 now. $2.23 in Hobart, before the last election, $1.82 now, according to the Australian Institute of Petroleum weekly price report, Mr Speaker. Now, we have found a much more effective way to help Australians with the cost of living. And the key difference between our cost of living package and what those opposite have come up with on the back of a coaster in the last couple of days, Mr Speaker, is we will provide ongoing cost of living help to every Australian taxpayer. And not only do they oppose that, Mr Speaker, not only did they vote against that in the House and in the Senate yesterday, Mr Speaker, but quite bizarrely, unusually in historical terms, the Shadow Treasurer was asked this morning, will he legislate to increase taxes on all 14 million Australian taxpayers, and he said absolutely he would. And as the Prime Minister has pointed out, the difference between this side and that side, Prime Minister asked would he increase the minimum wage, he said absolutely. Those opposite asked will they jack up taxes for every working taxpayer in this country, and they said absolutely, and that goes right to the difference.
Give a call to the